wanted to know which planet was causing your suffering? How about Earth?
Hey everyone, Brandflex here, back with another Eternal Return video. My voice is a bit better now, so I can talk normally, thank God, so we'll just jump right into it. So obviously I went over the preseason patch notes in the previous video, but for today I want to do a bit more of a general but also focused deep dive. Well, not really deep dive, but you'll see what I mean. I just want to go over 5 topics very vaguely that I think are pretty important for the preseason to succeed, just because they are pretty major changes, and that's saying a lot since this season didn't really change too much. So to jump right into it, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the first thing, which is going to be new item passives on existing items. I have to make that distinction because for some reason when I was planning it, I made 2 points for items, so it is what it is. So for the very first thing, I want to talk about Decomposition on Blood Cloak and Astral Helmet. So if you guys don't know, Blood Cloak is made from a tree, ironically enough, and then Astral Helmet is made from meteorite. And so essentially what this Decomposition passive is a replacement for the Healing Cut passive that used to be on these items, and now instead you get this dot that's applied whenever you hit a skill. So this dot seems pretty bad at first glance. Just for full education purposes, the patch notes were pretty wrong if you're reading the NA version. It's a HP percent dot, and then separately it's a amp scaling dot. So your amp scaling isn't affecting the HP scaling, it's just 2 separate things combined into one, if that makes sense. So for example, you hit 1 Q, you gotta deal 1.5% HP, and separately 22.5% of your amp. So that means if you hit 2 abilities, that dot is now going to do 3% max HP and about 23% of your flat amp. And so if you guys look at that number at face value, it might seem a bit low, but trust me when I say that this item is actually not that bad, all things considered. If your character has a weak form of long range poke like Ava's ultimate, then it actually adds a lot of value over time. But unfortunately, if you're a burst character, it won't really do too much. If you guys want, I can do a bit more of an in-depth video on this just to really get into the math, because it is very complicated. I'm actually recording this because the video got a little too long because I was ranting for like 5 whole minutes about the decomp math. So if you guys want that, just let me know. But otherwise, just trust me, if you have pretty decent poke in your kit, it's not that bad, honestly. You do have to kind of finagle your stats to get it in there properly, but it is worth it. But again, if you are an assassin burst character, don't bother, stick with your usual build. It's not going to add that much damage for you. So the other item passive that was added to an existing item is going to be on the Guardian suit, yes, the Force Core tank chest piece. I actually don't know what the passive is called because I have not only not built it, it also wasn't on the patch notes for some reason, I believe. So essentially this Guardian suit passive is going to share a theme with the other armor piece they've added to the game, which we'll go over next. Basically when you hit, I think, 480 HP from items specifically, not base scaling HP, but from your items, you activate this effect that will activate when you take a good amount of damage in a fight. This effect is going to be a pretty decent slow around you, as well as a massive tenacity boost, meaning that once you're kind of crowd controlled and bursted down, you not only hinder the enemies, you also become more mobile within the fight if they decide to continue trying to crowd control you. Obviously, it doesn't give you more tankiness, so you do have to be careful of that. But if you're ahead of your teammates, it will give you the chance to run back to your teammates, continue engaging, and also allow your teammates to catch up because your enemy team will be slowed. So very interesting, just because of the way that Guardian Suit works, you will be able to equip only 1 other HP item once you're about level 16. But before then, if you want to equip it at like level 10 or level 11, if for some reason you have a Force Core that early and the tank is building it, you will need multiple HP items to catch up. But very interesting item, very good addition, because I do think tanks were pretty strong, but depending on the tank, the utility was lacking, so decent change. So onto the second point, these are going to be new items with new item effects, and again, don't know why they're separate, but just hang with me on this. So the new chest piece that they've added is called the Tactical Armor, I think, and it's going to be an AP assassin based armor. So it's going to be very similar to Battlesuit. You're going to need a certain amount of a certain stat to trigger the passive, and so for Tactical Suit, it's going to be flat armor penetration, not percentage, but flat. So if you have Blood Ripper, this will not help you, ironically enough. So this flat armor penetration, you get 30 of it, and you activate a passive that executes any enemy you damage that goes below 6%. Very reminiscent of a different item from a different game. Interesting. But basically, you're gonna have to stack a lot of flat armor pen items, which makes you very squishy just because a lot of the flat armor pen items don't really provide the best tanky stats. Chain of Thorns is okay, but obviously if you have Iron Maidens, they don't give you anything. If you have Laurel Wreath, it's like a very small upgrade. And that's pretty much it, I think. I think you might be able to get one more. No, yeah, that's pretty much it. You do have to kind of finagle your build again around it. If you go Iron Maidens or Glacial Crampons, I can't forget what the upgraded one is. Whatever the upgraded boots are, you can get this passive very quickly because the upgraded boots gives you 16 flat armor pen and the chest piece gives you 9, I believe, which means that almost any other purple piece will give you the cap. So it is a very fast 2-item spike if you want to go Meteorite into Force Core. And honestly, the effect is pretty good. Just having to deal that much less damage on any target is very impactful. So never a bad choice if you're playing someone like Daniel, even Bernice actually, or like, yeah, I can't really think of any AP assassins, but you get the drift. The other item they've added, also in the vein for AP casters, is going to be Helix. So Helix is an arm piece that builds from a Force Core, very common theme here, and it's going to be very similar to, again, an item from a very similar game, you might notice, and it's going to shred armor per attack you land on an enemy. So this is individual attacks, so dots and multi-hits won't work, you do have to hit them with separate things or auto attacks, but it's minus 5% armor per hit, stacking up to minus 25%. And so what I want to let you guys remember, or rather what you guys should remember, is that armor penetration percentages in this game will not stack with different effects. Basically, you can only have one armor penetration percent effect at a time as a debuff on an opponent. So if you have something like Frailty, something like Isol passive, something like Adriana passive, something like Lord's W, these will all not stack properly with Helix. Obviously, when those fade, Helix will still be active due to the nature of its reapplication, but just be aware of that in case you're playing a very high burst comp. Helix might not be as useful if you have Adriana, because by the time they die, Helix won't be stacked. But on the other side, if you don't have these characters and you have somebody like Debbie Marlene, somebody like Isaac who can stay a bit longer alive and does hit a lot, it is very good because you do get that armor pen for the rest of your team. And if you guys know what armor pen does, it's just a massive boost of damage for everybody involved. So very, very good item. Really good for team play. This patch really is focused on team play. So for the third point, we do have kind of a neat update. I do think this one's a bit controversial because it seems like people are split between enjoying flexibility and enjoying not having to think, and that's going to be Sub-augment Flexibility. So basically, all 3 trees have been updated sub-augment wise to include one very good damage option and one very good utility option, and it's honestly pretty interesting, so we'll jump right into that. So for the red tree, we've lost stopping power, which was a very generic take this, its percentage, armor pen, etc, etc. Take this plus its Mantle Goliath if you're a ranged character, take this plus Animal Reaper if you're a melee character, and it was very, very generic. So without that, you do have to kind of choose between the other options. Obviously, we do still have this Mantle Goliath for ranged characters, but it's been very heavily nerfed. Animal Reaper still exists in its original form, but instead of stopping power, we now have this shiny new augment called Open Wounds. If you look at the values, it's very bad, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The value is genuinely very, very bad. It'll add up to maybe like 1% at most of your damage over a game, which you might say like is okay, but really it's probably just for early game briefing, just to get your mastery stack a bit faster. Not the worst augment obviously, but I don't think you're ever gonna be happy running it. But the augment I really want to talk about, the new one, is going to be Carnivore. And what Carnivore does is it gives you a very good source of free food, essentially, because you just need meat. What it does is that when you eat it, you immediately heal 100 HP, and then your healing from food is doubled. So obviously they're nerfed actually raw meat in the preseason, so that you only get 600 total from eating meat overall, even with this buff. But that's still pretty good considering that you don't have to bother going to a campfire, and it is better than steak. So thoughts on that one? Spirit Holding still exists under a different name, but if you're a very SP hungry character like Shuichi or Emma, it does still exist, so don't cry too much about that. For the blue tree, we have Sentinel moved over, so now you have the very neat package of Sentinel, not Sentinel, the single target version of Assembly. You have the single target version of Assembly moved over to the blue sub-augments, and you still have Emboldened, so the package is there generically for any character if you just want to run Emboldened plus Unraving Tenacity or whatever it's called, you do have that choice. It's a very good generic pair to take if you have a very strong in-combat ultimate that you like using and soaking up damage with. Otherwise, you do still have Dyna Dash. You do kind of have Cavalcade, but Cavalcade's really fake. So really, if you're taking the blue tree, you will be playing a character that loves going in with an ultimate and then soaking up damage with that combination. Kind of less flexible in that regard, but Dyna Dash does exist, and Dyna Dash is apparently a pretty decent replacement to Stalk or Animal Reaper just because of how it works. So really pick your poison on that one. For the green tree, we do have now Thea, which has been updated to giving, not Thea rather, but Logistics, which has kind of replaced Thea and the original Logistics to giving you cameras. So you do get telephoto cameras, and you get 2 of them. So technically, very technically, you're getting 120 credits for free every night, if you want to look at it as an ordering perspective. Now, we do still have Thorn Shackles, still very good. Penny Venture, still very good. But the other augment we now have is going to be Thrill of the Hunt, which is the sub-augment version of Run It Back. So now if you're just farming and you want to take the green tree for some reason, you do now have a built-in sustain option on animals. Very minor, but does exist and does give you speed, so it's very nice. You do have to decide more and more often between what utility you want in the green tree besides Thorn Shackles, which is obviously your damage portion. Audio quality might dip here, my heater just turned on, but regardless, moving forward, we do have some Tac Skill Adjustments. Blasting Bullet has been removed, Blessed Soul, it's been replaced by Strider, which in my opinion is really bad. The active range to get the movement speed increase that you only gain when you run at somebody is very, very small, like 6 meters small. So basically you're gonna be in melee, and the moment you do any damage, that damage is cancelled. So if you're 11 with your ultimate aura popped, let's say that you're just trying to run at someone to taunt them, maybe your ultimate pop because you were dying. The moment your aura ticks, you press that F button, it's cancelled. You just did the damage. You were literally better running Blade of Truth in that scenario than Strider. So I'm sure some characters can run it fine, like maybe Camilo, but it's very niche. You have to experiment with them more. I haven't done it, so maybe somebody will find a use case for it. That aside, Nullification, Soul Stealer, Electric Shift have all been buffed pretty well. They're all much better for mobility and utility, so if you already like those options, please start using them more. Nullification especially has gotten a massive buff with that movement's been increased, so really just go for it. It's actually kind of crazy how nice it feels now. And then jumping right to the chase with the 5th option, we do, or rather the 5th thing, Ranked has been updated with the tiers and climbing. So essentially what this is doing is making it a bit harder to climb in gold, making it a good amount more difficult to climb in diamond, but then once you hit mithril and beyond, it will become easier to climb overall. So essentially, this is Nimble Neuron trying to smooth out the ranks ladder. The previous season, they claim that it wasn't as bad as it seemed on the stat sites, but I'm sure we can all guess the truth. Diamond was very, very inflated. I think most of the ranked population, according to stat sites, wasn't diamond. According to Nimble Neuron, that wasn't the case, but it probably just means there was like an inflation in gold and diamond because that's where people stopped, so not really helping their cause at all. So they're trying to smooth it out. If you guys struggle to get the gold before, you will struggle a bit more this season. And if you struggle to get to diamond and maintain diamond, you will definitely struggle a lot more this season as well. So obviously it sucks to struggle more to get to a rank that you think you deserve, but it's probably for the best. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that, just because I don't know how people feel about the fact that their climb might be harder because a bunch of people at the top decided that they want the distribution to be more spread out. Personally, I'm of the opinion that it is better for the game overall to have an actual bell curve across the game instead of everyone just hitting their desired goal after playing thousands of games. But obviously my opinion is kind of flawed because I am not a ranked player. But yeah, that'll probably be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll try and make more videos throughout the week, but honestly, there's been very, very little with this patch overall. I might make a patch looking back on 1.0, but really, I just want to see how the stats roll out and see what characters are the best for climbing for 2.0, because that is probably the main interest we all have coming into this fairly light new season. But yeah, with all that said, hope you guys have a good day or night wherever you are, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.